My honest advice to anyone stuck under $5 million a year is to fire yourself. And I know how insane that sounds. You might know every single client, every single process, you know where all the bodies are buried in the business. But the truth is, you're not stuck because your market is too small or your competition is too strong. You're stuck because you've become the biggest bottleneck in your own business. I see brilliant founders who've built multi-million dollar companies, but they can't break through to the next level because they're drowning from their own success. They're working 70-hour weeks, making every decision and putting out every single fire. So in this video, I'm giving you my honest advice on how to fire yourself safely and scale past $5 million. My name is David, and I've helped companies break through revenue plateaus by using this exact playbook that I'm about to go over. So if you're ready to stop being your business's biggest limitation, watch until the end. Okay, so let's talk about the actual roles of a CEO. Everyone thinks a CEO is the chief executive officer, but famously, Patrick Lencioni is actually one of the greatest management consultants and thinkers of our time. And he actually calls the CEO the chief executing officer. So really, the CEO is meant to coordinate all the departments in a company and whittle down all of his in-person work towards these three brackets right here. So at the end of the day, what is the CEO supposed to do? It's really just supposed to be this, and this. The CEO's job is to make the business as frictionless as possible to allow that person to get to a point where they're just thinking about these categories and having meetings throughout the day just around these categories. What does that mean? It means capital and strategy. Every company has something called a capital stack. It starts out, it's equity. Okay, maybe we throw on some debt on top of it. But whatever it is, it's always based around this massive thing called a capital stack. And the CEO is always talking with its CFO to essentially manage this stack and make sure that the equity goes up and the debt goes down. That's all it is. And equity comes from sales, NOI, strong balance sheets, assets minus liabilities, and obviously the debt acts as a liability. You want to grow your equity. You want to grow your retained earnings. All the core signs of growing shareholder value are reflected in the capital stack. So CEO's job is to say, okay, well then how do we cut up the pot here in the equity stack? How do we maybe sell our debt in a certain way that gives us the optimal point of leverage? And he's always talking with the CFO about this, probably monthly, if not weekly. There's a conversation that happens around the capital stack alone. So this is strategy and capital. Then there's people and structure. So org boards, organizational charts, you have the CEO on top, and then a bunch of departments, right? So we have product, marketing, sales, customer service, recruiting, HR, IT, and finance. Typically, this is what we see in most companies. And then those departments will branch off, and each branch will have its own systems and processes in place. And the whole goal of this is to de-risk the business from key man risk and to show investors and other strategic buyers and other vendors and other clients that you're a actual business. You're not going to go out of business tomorrow if the CEO gets executed somehow, right? So at the end of the day, the goal of the CEO is to execute the entire operation of the company and work with the managers to scale. And the CEO is going to be communicating with all these departments at the same time, setting standards, quality assurance, tons of other stuff. But in essence, this is what we're looking at for the CEO. So that's step one, understanding the fact that the chief executing officer is only responsible for these categories and that his value or her value is not being reflected properly if they're not doing this. So how do we understand whether their time is being used properly? So this is what we do. We need to track the time that they're using and abide by the rule of 40, which is essentially no more than 40% of a CEO's time should be meant for tasks that aren't these three. So if you're the CEO, your job is to make sure that more than half your day is spent doing only this and not this. So stick by the 40% rule, start auditing your time, start breaking things up into 30 minutes, 15-minute increments, because as a manager, you're not super product focused because you are trying to scale as many meetings as you can because you know that you're going to be having conversations here. The product's already made. The fulfillment team is there. It exists. exists. Delivery is there. You're no longer thinking about product in the sense of how do I always make this better, which is something every CEO is going to think about to a degree, but depending on the company's size and the maturity of its products, it's going to change, right? CEO is going to be involved, but this is just communication and standards at that point. This is a quality assurance question. Maybe you want to add new products and services, maybe, but that will be more in people and structure and maybe some capital and strategy as well. You're now more of a strategic thinker because you're overseeing a organization that has a significant sales pipeline, good marketing channels, predictable revenue, some seasonality is possible. You understand the cadence of the business. This isn't a startup. This is a legitimate business. So then we go and we audit sales delivery and the back-end infrastructure. How well is that doing? This is a very important assessment to make to see the sales systems and the sales team KPIs. How is the delivery doing? What is the utilization rates of every department? What does inventory look like if you're an inventory business? And then back-end, how are the financial systems of the business? How are the technology-based approaches for everything doing? Is there any leverage where we can bundle low-value tasks and services that lots of clients want into a SaaS or a junior employee? So when we look at our line item financial system, we're always asking ourselves, what's low value? What's high value? How much is the work going to be? So impact effort. There's a ton of assessments that the CEO is constantly doing every single day. And then when they see that there's errors, they either do the SOPs themselves or they bring in trainers, managers, people with experience, and they work with the CFO, obviously, to budget that. The whole point of the business is to create this vehicle that's intangible. There are qualitative factors in the business that make it so important to invest in your people and your processes and your systems. And that return on investment of time, energy, and resources isn't going to show up for at least 4 weeks. So anytime you make a change in a business, you're going to see possibly even a 20% drop off in that department's performance. Especially if we can tie it to revenue, you're going to see a 20% decline. So the return needs to be greater than that. And that's because you're investing, right? We're investing into our people. We're investing with new coaches, with people who are going to charge us money. There needs to be a budget for it. At the end of the day, you do need SOPs. You do need trainers. You do need managers. You need people to come in and just sell you systems so that you can tie it into your business and run with it, right? The moment you have a good partner, the moment you have a good manager, your business will improve. So the name of the game, going back to here, is people and structure. Because once we've already executed on capital and strategy, we have our plan for the next year, the next 2 years or 5 years, 10 years even. Then it's about people and structure. So how do we get the right people in the team? How do we get A players? How do we structure their compensation plans the right way so that they're incentivized to grow the organization and grow with it and look at it more as a career than just a job? And then it's communication and standards, right? You want to end up becoming the go-to brand or firm or company in your niche. And that comes from how well the operations are going in your business on a day-to-day, how great the customer reviews are, how much do people actually like you and the value that you're delivering to them based on what their expectations are. Are you exceeding expectations? So these are standards. Super important to have high standards in your business. Super important. Then delegation, KPI scorecarding. So we have the right org board, right? We have all the right people. Now we need to delegate them into different tasks and we need to manage them. But then we also have to have them outcome focused. So I don't care how a job gets done, as long as it's legal, ethical, within the confines of our company's operating procedures. I just want the job to get done because I just want the outcome. So whenever you hire leaders, they need to be outcome focused. Obviously cost sensitive to a degree based on a budget. You don't want to hire idiots, but you need outcome focused executives, which means they need to know what moves the needle in their business, which means you're going to need to decide what KPIs are actually important to moving the needle. And then you have to compensate them based on these KPIs. In all our companies and all our client companies, we have a weekly cadence structure, which are called senior leadership meetings, right? Senior leadership training, updates. We have meetings every single week with our clients and our portfolio companies to go over exactly what happened, what are the updates, what's new, and scorecard everything. And we actually have our own proprietary software that we use to do that. If you're interested, book a call in the description below and we'll show you what we do. But we actually have our own way of scorecarding all the KPIs and then tying these KPIs to the department that we care about. So if it's revenue-based function, we have KPIs for revenue. If it's finance, it's finance. If it's marketing, it's marketing, right? But you need KPIs KPIs to run the business, because that will make it more sellable and it'll allow you to buy back your time and keep rinse and repeating the process. So ultimately, doing all of this will make you more money. It's a lot of upfront work, but that's what a business is. It's a lot of procedural investments, people investments, capital strategy, raising capital. It always depends on how fast you want to grow. But if you're going to grow, if you're going to scale, start thinking about this, start mapping this out. And if you want our assistance to do that, book a call in the description below and we'll help you do it.